bicycles yield to hikers and everyone yields to horses. That's the main thing you need to know. But you might not know that at Island Lake on a busy Saturday afternoon. Man, mountain bikers come flying over these hills. They're technically supposed to get off their bike and walk it. I don't really think that they have to do that, but you gotta.
If you ever see that happen, let me,
Yeah, rarely.
Take a picture, but don't lose your phone.
Right, because they are more likely to have headphones in, earbuds, and they just come flying over a hill, and it can be dangerous. Now, on the Pacific Crest Trail, that trail was originally intended for pack stock, and there are tons of horses and mules, strings of mules, and you have to know how to handle it. If you see a horse coming the opposite way, you know the horse has right of way, so typically you step downhill a couple steps, take off your headgear, and greet the horseback rider verbally. You know, everything you can do to not alarm the animal. That's the main thing, is you don't want the horse rearing up and hurting the rider or you or both. So you gotta be careful about that. I did see some new signage at, might have been Proud Lake, but trails specifically for mountain bikes. And in that case, we do yield to the mountain bike. If their signage is such that, hey, this trail is intended for mountain bikes, you can still hike it, but it's up to you now to watch out for the bike. Let me go back to trail etiquette just for a second. Another one that I really seen people struggle with is uphill has right of way. Uphill, especially under load, has right of way. And people just don't get that. You'll see it. You'll see day hikers out there that come bouncing down the trail. Give uphill hikers the right of way. Individual or pairs have right of way over long lines of hikers. They're supposed to step aside and let individuals in pairs or smaller numbers pass through if you're hiking with a group, but they don't. They just keep coming. Don't stop in the middle of a trail. Don't blow up your pack in the middle of a trail. For God's sake, don't set up your tent in the middle of the trail. You're going to see all those things. And it's just from lack of knowledge. They just stop in the middle of the trail and spread out all their stuff, and then you come along and you're like, what are you doing? So, saw some really poor trail etiquette out there. Camp etiquette. When you come into a shelter or a camp at night, especially if it's late, shut up. People are going to bed as early as 7, 8 o'clock, and they need to sleep. So if you're coming in late, quiet. Don't have your headlamp and flash it all around the camp. If you've ever been inside a tent, when someone shines their headlamp on it, you feel like it's a prison break or something, you know? It's like, it gets really bright in there. Either put on the red lamp, or for me, I hang my headlamp around my neck, and I just kind of cover it. You know, I need it. I open it up as I need to see what I'm doing, or if I'm bent over, I can see what I'm doing, but mostly shut up and try not to bother other hikers. You know, there were places along the AT where lots of other hikers, sometimes 40 or 50 tents, all in pretty close proximity. Most of the people being pretty cool, a few idiots. Leave no trace is an important philosophy to me, and it's challenging because you can get really sticky with leave no trace. You'll see other people breaking leave no trace rules out there, and for me it's enough just to be able to follow the philosophy. I'm not really into correcting other people, but at least one time I saw some guys along the Appalachian Trail. They were there with their daughters, teaching their daughters about outdoorsmanship and hiking and everything, and they started to pack up their car and drive away right in front of me with an actual smoking fire, an active fire going on. And at that point I had to be like, 60 years of Smokey the Bear and you're gonna walk away from this? You gotta put, I can't believe I'm saying this, you have to put out the fire before you leave. And they were like, oh yeah, of course we will. But I took that chance to go to the girls. I had these laminated cards that had the leave no trace principles. And I said to the kids, you guys are the next generation of outdoorsmen. It's up to you to coach them up. Make sure you read these rules to them the whole way home. You get sick. And I want to talk specifically about my friend Jackie, because as we were planning our thru hike of the Appalachian Trail, we both knew about Lyme disease. We knew it was a risk. I had heard of hikers getting bit by a tick and getting Lyme disease. I've been bitten by hundreds of ticks. I've picked off hundreds of ticks. And I just chalked it up to, possible, not probable. But somewhere along the halfway point, Jackie got bit. So the insight on this is if you Google Lyme disease, that's the sort of animation, the little cartoon that comes up, and that was her rash. Wow. And I'll tell you, she left the trail after 1,100 miles, and that was in July, and she's still suffering now. Sorry she couldn't be here tonight, but she has Lyme arthritis, she has crazy symptoms, she's seeing infection control doctors, and all kinds of specialists, and she's on all kinds of medications, and it's really turning her life upside down. And it happened. It happened to her, and we just, luckily, she knew that something was wrong. she just said to me one day, she's like, I'm going home. Something's not right. I don't feel right. I'm going home. And I said, whoa, no rash decisions. I said, there's a town in 3 days. Hike with me to the next town, and if you still feel like quitting, then go home. But don't just, and she said, the gears are already in motion. My daughter's coming out here to pick me up from this little town, and I'm going home. And thank goodness she did, because that rash was there the day she got home. She was able to get on antibiotics, pretty quickly, and that's a big thing, the time from exposure to treatment. But again, this is months and months later, and she is still in rough shape.
So, you can actually get doxycycline, which I already got from my doctor, and I'm carrying it with me. So if you get it, if you suspect it, you have like 72 hours after that tick bites you to take the doxycycline, which my doctor actually had to Google. She said nobody's ever asked for it before. But I have it in my first aid kit already.
They put Jackie on a round of doxycycline, and man, it's tough on your system. That is a potent broad-spectrum antibiotic. So up at the table here, I have a whole bottle of permethrin. So we did DEET every day. We were very careful with DEET, tons and tons of DEET, but we didn't use permethrin, which is a chemical that you spray on your clothes and on your pack and let it dry, and it lasts for about 6 weeks, I think, and it can help deter ticks. And since your ticks in all 50 states, before I hike Arizona, I'm saturating my gear with permethrin.
So I did one step further. I set mine to Insect Shield, which lasts 70 washings. So all of my clothing, you get a bag, you pay $80 for a bag, you get this bag. You can fit so much clothing in there, it's amazing. You send it off to Insect Shield, it's a deep permethrin. Everything I have now has a sewn-in label saying it's been treated by Insect Shield permethrin, and they send it back to you I got mine back within 13 days of sending it, and all of my clothes that I'm taking has been treated already.
I think that's smart. And
even these have a little sticker in them that says treated. And my Darn Tough socks now have a stamp on the bottom saying Insect Shield. So
me, and more so Jackie, wishes she had done that.
I treated everything.
So she when she left, she didn't know it was Lyme disease. There was no bite.
Nope. There was just a red spot. There was just a red spot in the middle, and she just said, I don't feel right, and her energy level just dropped right off. She had this terrible lethargy suddenly, and she just said, I don't feel right. And again, that was just a red dot. And then when she got home, her daughter took that picture and saw how bad it was.
But she knew she had a red dot. Did she make the connection between that bite?
Sponsors, because I owe them as much. Moose Jaw, they couldn't be here tonight, but Moose Jaw's been a huge sponsor of mine. They've come to a bunch of these meetings before and given out free gear and stuff. They are a very cool company, and Tom from their marketing department, I just realized the other day, this picture's more than 10 years old. He's been working with me. So I'll say real quick too, one time Backpacker Magazine called me for an interview, and they said, we're interviewing experienced hikers on what gear they use and why. And I think they wanted me to say, I use Gossamer gear and Z-Packs, and I use this because it's the best and everything, but that's not true. I use whatever I can beg, borrow, or steal, mostly from Moose Jaw, some from the Solar Club. So, and friends and family, I use whatever I can get my hands on to keep me out there, but Moose Jaw's been very kind. Underground Quilts, again, from Jackson, Michigan. Please come up and check out that quilt, because it is quality gear. It's the McWalters family. They brought me out to Jackson, and the first quilt I actually made with them. I mean, a little bit. They let me kind of in the process. And I'm glad to see this company is growing in leaps and bounds. They just bought a whole new building. They have all new sewing machines. And I think what they really want from me is to be sold by Moose Jaw. They want Moose Jaw to carry their stuff. Because I was able to do that with Stormy Cromer. I'm a big fan of Stormy Cromer hats. They're made in Ironwood, Michigan. They're handmade up there. They're super cool. I wear mine brimless and backward. It's an iconic hunting hat. You've seen they have flaps on the sides. And the first time I hiked up there, they were really nice to me. They've been very generous with me ever since. And I was able to get Moose Jaw to carry them, and now Moose Jaw is their third biggest customer.
Is Moose Jaw owned by Walmart or?
It is. When I'm researching gear, that's where I go. Anything by Heather Anderson. Heather Anderson has 2 books, Mud, Rocks and Blazes, and Thirst. These are my 2 signed copies. I took them out of the hermetically sealed glass case where I normally keep them and exposed them to the elements just so you can see them. Also autographed. Kind of water filter treatment, I think, I used iodine the whole first time through the Appalachian Trail, which is not good. You're not supposed to use that stuff over and over, but I did. On the Pacific Crest Trail, I tried a little ampule full of bleach, and I put 2 drops per liter of water, and it does a really good job, but you get really sick of the smell of bleach, And if that thing comes open in your pack, you're screwed. It's pretty destructive stuff. I tried gravity filters, I tried pump filters, but lately it's the Sawyer filter. These are really good. They filter down to 10 microns, so it'll take care of Giardia and cryptosporosis. It doesn't filter out taste and surfactants and fuel. It doesn't filter those things out, but you'll see these everywhere. It fits right onto most bottle tops, like a smart water bottle. You screw it right on there, and then turn it upside down and squirt your dirty water into a new one. So that's what I use for water. What are you using?
I'm using the same thing, but I'm using a CNOC bag.
Mm-hmm.
I like the wide opening of a CNOC bag. If you're at a lake, you just a couple scoops and you fill the whole CNOC bag.
Yep.
I have caught a minnow in it once when I came all the way back to camp, and I'm like, there's something swimming. So I didn't realize I was at a river, and I scooped up a minnow. So I had to go back and release the darn thing.
Minnow flavored.
Yeah, well, you know.
I tried a water bladder one time I carried. I had an MSR bladder. But the problem with those is, if you get a pinhole in that, now it's useless, and you have to back it out. And you'll curse it the whole way.
Yeah.
I did. Yes, sir.
Have you ever been approached by like a dangerous animal?
A very common question. Yeah, I had a couple bear run-ins. On this last hike through the AT was probably the worst one. I'll tell you the story very quickly, which was Jackie and I found this campsite, and there was no one there. It was the first campsite out of the Smokies, and there's no other hikers around. I was like, this is the perfect site. There's water nearby. There's flat spots for tents. Why isn't anyone here? So set up the tent. I'm cooking food about probably 20 yards away, and a big sow came right into our campsite. And I didn't see her until she was about probably 20 feet away from the tent, and she was headed for the tent. And so I got up and I yelled, Jackie, there's a bear, and I started clanking my trekking poles together. And first thing is, this bear didn't like haul ass out of there. Like every black bear I've come across, they really move. This one kind of jogged away, and she only went till she was far enough that I couldn't throw anything at her. And then Jackie comes out of the tent, she says, oh look, 3 more. So now there's 3 cubs. And not little cute little fuzzy cubs, more like a couple years old, I think, 3 years old, like curious and potentially dangerous and really wanting to come into our camp. And so I'm throwing stuff at them, and they're just staying just out of reach and just circling our camp. And I was like, we gotta go, we can't. So in the meantime, she's looking on gun hooks and she's like, oh yeah, there's like 50 comments here, don't camp here, there's aggressive bears. This bear had clearly been habituated to people. People have been feeding those bears, you could tell. And you know, I hope not, but those bears might end up being destroyed because people thought it was cute to throw them food. So we packed up our stuff. The whole time these bears are circling us, we packed up our gear and hiked another 2.5 miles.
That's
so I've
scary.
had that. But in terms of what animals am I afraid of, very common question. Number 1, other people. A human, it could do you the most harm. Now, luckily, it's mostly like-minded people out there. You know, for someone to go all the way out there to try and harm you is pretty extraordinary. But a human is the most dangerous thing. Number 2, mice, because they will eat into your pack, they'll eat into your food bag, and they poop everywhere. Mice are mini bears. And number 3 is a skunk. If you get sprayed by a skunk, you're screwed. You can't go in, you can go into town, but you're not gonna get a hotel anywhere. So I actually had a skunk come into the vestibule of my tent one time, and it was just sniffing around, but I was so afraid that I was gonna alarm it and that it would spray me. So I just tried to like hold real still and go away now, and it did, so I was lucky. But good question. More questions?
What about ground insulation?
Yeah, I use a piece of Tyvek, which is you know, it's this stuff, the home building material.
Yeah.
I use a piece of Tyvek, and I use a Z-fold pad. There's my Tyvek. It's well worn. The Z-fold pad, which is down there, is good. I've gone back and forth between an inflatable mattress and a Z-fold pad. Advantages to each. The inflatable mattress, way more comfortable, but you can't use it anywhere there's going to be thorns. I can't bring it to Arizona. It'll pop in one day. Weight-wise, it's about the same. A Z-fold weighs about as much as most mattresses. Jackie carried a Nemo, a new one, a Nemo in Z-fold pad, and that's my old Thermarest. When it's really cold, I bugged Jeff McWilliams, and he gave me his mattress, and I use both. I use the Tyvek, and then the Z-fold pad, and then inflatable mattress on top of that. What are you carrying?
I've got an old X-Bed. I've had that since 2016, so it's an inflatable.
Yeah.
But it hasn't popped yet, so until then, I see no reason to change it out.
Yeah. I think Z-fold, a lot of times I'll use it, like if the ground is wet or snowy, you can throw it down and use it as a sitting pad. You can spread out your lunch on it. If you're trying to spread out gear and look at stuff, you know, it's just pretty versatile. I don't like that I have to tie it to the outside of my pack. It's not aesthetically pleasing. I mean, that's not a big deal, but
Yeah, I carry a little.
wet, That's just it. You can try to protect yourself all you want. I have a shell, which is made by Marmot. It's full Gore-Tex. And then I have like my base layer under that. And that'll protect my upper half. My lower half, I just let it wet. I don't wear rain pants or a rain skirt or any of that stuff because you're just gonna get wet. There's nothing to it. Yes? Yes.